understand why. Here we go. We got it. Just seemed to be a loose wire. We're back. I mean, we just can't seem to catch a break. I certainly can't in terms of... I can't even get my microphone to work. Never mind what's been happening in the charts, but it has been a hell of a couple of days. Not the best looking. And if you think about where we were Friday into Saturday, you couldn't have sentiment much further away. Now, I would argue that there weren't many of us that were cheering on Friday and sentiment was still pretty low. But even for ourselves, it has been a tough day out there. We're going to go through it all. As the thumbnail says, any Bitcoin holders, don't look down because we are on the precipice of 100K. And you know my views on what happens if we close below 100K. But we'll dive into that. We're going to have a look at the markets. We're going to have a look at the bloodbath. We're going to try and find some hopium from somewhere. But we're also going to give a bit of a sprinkle of reality, I'm afraid. And we'll take it from there. Let's jump into this. I think we'll start with the crypto bubbles. Now, this is top 100, I think, daily. So this is daily loss. And I think just the point I'm trying to prove here is just the sheer breadth of the red that we've seen. Unbelievably, ICP and Decred are green. I mean, I'm not sure why. Don't know why they pumped and the others haven't. But that's what we can see. And I think the two red bubbles that really stick out for me, BitTensor, unfortunately, down 18%. SPX also down 18%, but as you can see, most altcoins in the top 100 are down plus 5% or more. It's not been a great week, and if we just want to sort of exacerbate this a little bit, you put it for the week, and most things are down 20, if not 30%, and you even want to throw it in on the month. There's a couple there that are actually done okay. Tau is all right up on the month, Zcash, Dash, a few others, but generally, altcoins, well, and Bitcoin have been struggling over the last 30 days. It's not been a great time for us in the market. This was supposed to be the NASDAQ. But anyway, what I was trying to say was this is across both markets. It's not just crypto. We're actually seeing the NASDAQ, S&P, traditional gold even, all down today, but certainly much greater falling in the crypto market where, let's be honest, we're mainly concerned. So we go and have a look at our usual charts. I would like to start this, and immediately off the bat, we've got some concerns. We are no longer in the range that we have actually been in since May. We have now broken below it. Granted, it's a 3-day time frame. It's a day and a half to go. We have wicked below this in the past. But as we currently stand, we have lost that 101755 level. That number is going to become important a little bit later on. So alarm bells ready. And we are now trading below. And I think if we're being honest with ourselves, we're going to need a new line. So I'm going to kind of be looking bottom of these wicks. This here, I think, for me, decent amount of action over on the left-hand side. Couple of wicks here and then nothing. 92,500, give or take a little bit. And you can kind of see, how much the falling has happened. But it was only Sunday that we were 111,000. So we've kind of lost 10% of Bitcoin's market cap over the last 2 days. And again, as I'm talking now, we're getting close to that 100K. Again, we have dipped below it ever so slightly. 99,800 is the lowest we got to so far today. And we'll just see how that progresses going through, but not a particularly pretty picture. Trying to find some hope within this one. I think we just got to see how this candle closes over the next day and a half. If we can get back above 101,600, close at the bottom of this, there's a good chance that we're going to see it bounce. We've seen back in June, July, May, a lot of action in and around here. We did on occasion break below it, but we have closed. And I will throw this on the daily, because what I will say is that today, in 4 hours time, depending on how we close, this could be the lowest daily close since the 23rd of June, 22nd of June. So, a good, almost 5 months since we've been down at this level, which I think is why we are experiencing the fear we have. I think a lot of us since then, we've had moves to 110 all-time high, 118 all-time high, 126 all-time high. And whilst we have retraced it from those, we've always found the ability to bounce back. And yet this one, it doesn't seem to be the case. And I think what sort of exacerbates that fear somewhat more is if you go back to the 10th of October with that $20 billion dollar cascading liquidation event, Bitcoin did not get down to 100K, 102,000, I think was the lowest it got to. So yes, we've had some liquidations happen today. I will go over that in a bit. But we are now at a level that even that once in a bull run, once in a 4-year cycle, whatever you want to call it, kind of drop in a day, couldn't get down to. We have found our way down there now. And I think the real thing for most people is they're just trying to find answers as to what has caused us to get down there. Is this just a bit of fear mongering and market makers trying to get in at a better price? Or actually, are we all wrong and the top was already in and we're now starting to move that way down? So we are going to look into that today, try and find out if we can see it any better. Bitcoin dominance. I mean, if you are a Bitcoin holder and you're looking to compare it versus altcoins, then it is doing okay. We're almost at 61%. I have been talking about it for a while, and I think Bitcoin dominance will climb. I still stand by that. I believe that this will outperform the majority of altcoins out there. And when you look at Total 2, you can kind of see we are falling. Now, Total 2 has not fallen as far as Bitcoin did in terms of sort of down to its wick. It fell all the way down to about, well, just below 1.2 trillion on the 10th of October. We're standing at about 1.3. So still 100 billion or so to find before we get to that level. And we do have a fairly decent support level at 1.25 trillion that we could find some turnaround from that. But the fall has been far sharper, far greater, far faster on altcoins than it was with Bitcoin, hence why Bitcoin dominance has climbed and altcoins continue to struggle. And I'm going to show you something with Ethereum later on the call. It's going to blow your socks off and you're going to understand why this one is struggling as bad as it is. And then we get it to our beloved BitTensor and, that emergency call on Friday. We were all pretty pumped, all pretty excited as to how high BitTensor was climbing. And let's be honest, actually, over the weekend got as high as $540. Unfortunately, we're down at 390. We've busted through a couple of major levels on the way back down, but just using the charts I've got in front of you, my main concern is this confluence of sort of support and resistance with the yellow and the white line in and around about 110,000, give or take. We bust through that today. We are moving back down. I did talk in Discord about 390 maybe being a possible level for it to turn around, but if I'm being perfectly honest, I think we just got to wait to see what the market does as a whole. Then we can start talking about turning around. And hell, to be fair to BitTensor, when it is pumping, it pumps far faster than the rest of the market. But unfortunately, in those pullbacks, it asks for it to pull back far quicker. I had this up and I've gone and lost it. Let's see if I can find it again. And I know sometimes I get a bit of flack because I'm a bit of a doomsayer in terms of telling people what they should be doing in terms of trying to take profit or something else. But the reality of it is, when we did speak on Friday, if I can find it, which I probably can't now, where did I put it? Sorry, bear with me. Next page. Well, when we did see it on Friday, I was talking about the fact that, went to Discord afterwards, it is great. We've sat through BitTensor being as low as it has been, and then we've seen those moves up. And I did sort of say, look, sorry to sound like a broken Avenger here, but take some profit whilst the going is good. Don't be like 95% of all traders that round trip it. And, the reality of it is, most of us have sat with BitTensor for months at sort of 300 level, sometimes lower. We get it all the way up to 540. And myself included, I didn't take any profit. I've taken some advantage of some shorting and things like that. But just bear in mind, for every 100 BitTensor that you own, if that's the number that you do own, the difference between 540 and 390 is $15,000. That's $15,000 difference. And there's profit that could have been taken there. It was fairly obvious that we were going to see some sort of pullback. I didn't expect it to pull back as far as here. I was talking about that 460 level. But this is why I do try and stress, and I'm sorry that it may sound boring sometimes or against what you want to hear, but nobody is going to be angry with you if you take profit. And any of you that had done that, you can even now decide just to stick that in your back pocket or buy actually considerably less. And that's why we do it. We don't go up forever. And I think just to reiterate on that point there, we'll leave the lectures as they are. But what I would say for BitTensor's defense is, over the last 3 weeks or so, we have seen these massive moves up, followed by pretty big retracements. What we kind of need now is it to turn around. This 390 level, be an ideal level and continue its momentum. And unfortunately, it has down 17% on the day. But to be fair, the past previous, 6 or 7 days, we were 30%, 40% rises. So as I mentioned, fairly, well, not obvious, but fairly comfortable that this thing was going to pull back. People take profit. That's the reality of it. And so, yeah, that's just been exacerbated a little bit. Evening all, sorry, I should have said, if you've got any questions, please feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll try and get round through them. I only had one question sent to me beforehand, which was probably a bit of a joke, but I'm going to run with it. So yeah, we'll see where we go. Not really going to concentrate too much on the news. We are seeing that Bitcoin has fallen below 101, but analysts are actually suggesting that this could be underpriced. And so actually, there's an argument to be said, it's actually a good time to buy. So, the spot ETFs, we are seeing some outflows at the moment, but generally it's net positive still. Stablecoin liquidity is still there. There's definitely interest in leveraging, but we're going to have a look at the shorts versus the longs a little bit later on. But just given the amount of falling that we have, I know some people have talked in Discord about it being a full moon, I think tomorrow or the day after, and sort of major levels, 100,000, and we'll have a look at some other TA to try and support it. We may actually find ourselves at a point of bouncing. And I think, when we start to look at the fear and greed index, we can actually see it's at 21. This is actually how it printed last night before we saw the fall today. So it hasn't changed at the moment. We're still at 21, but the saying, when there's blood in the water, buy, or blood on the streets, buy. Be greedy when they are fearful. And it's hard to sometimes pick the exact point if you're trying to catch the falling knife and get the exact bottom. But, generally speaking, buying at these levels of fear, assuming that we are going to continue into a bull market, is a good position. I did buy another amount of Bitcoin yesterday. Annoyingly, of course, the price has fallen over $6,000 since then, but we can't quite catch the bottom. It felt like a good price at the time, and I buy it every month regardless. It wasn't, I'd set it aside to try and wait. We can have a look, and I think the next chart is both a positive and a negative spin from what I'm trying to say here. So what we've got is Bitcoin on the monthly time frame, goes all the way back to 2017. The reason I've only taken it back that far is because on the bottom, you can kind of see most of it. Let me just get rid of the camera for a second. There we go. Is the fear and greed index. And what I've kind of, these white lines that are running up and down, they're trying to signify when Bitcoin, the fear and greed index has been in extreme fear. Okay, so anywhere between 0 and 25 to try and show you where you are. And I think the first thing that I want to sort of point out is we don't normally see extreme fear like this and down in these levels at a bull run, at a bull top. That's not where we expect to see it. Now, an argument can certainly be made that after the April 2021 high, 64,000, we dropped down to 30 or 28,000. We did go all the way down to, I think, 25 on the fear and greed index. And you can make the argument that we weren't in a bear market then. That was just a reset and we had the move up. And I think there's a little bit of hopium there that we could have that argument out ourselves. But generally, dipping down into those levels is associated with bear markets, okay? And the only other anomaly to that was the COVID crash 2020, which sort of shook all the markets, but it quickly recovered from it. So there is something to say, well, this doesn't feel right. And if you are worrying why you're so scared or so concerned about it, it's because it doesn't actually feel right with how the markets have been being played. Wow, that was a tongue twister. And I completely and utterly get that. But on the other side of it, every time we do get down to these levels, and they may be short-lived because they're in the bear market, but we see big moves up, okay? So we go back to April 18, we had that crash sort of down, and then, never 2 months worth, or that month and the next month, we saw it move back up. We go down to November 18 and through into December, and then we start to see that rally and that move back up. I accept that one's slightly delayed. Even the COVID crash, short-lived there. Then we go into July 2021, or May 21, when this happened, moving into June, and we see that rally up to the actual all-time high of 2021. I've just realized I'm looking at the camera talking to you. I'm not there. There we go. And then we sort of, you can see all the other examples through 2022 there. But if we go to 2025, what we did in March and April with the announcement of the tariffs, that massive drop back down to 75,000. What happened? We saw that springboard there. And I'm just trying to emphasize the point that when we are this fearful, if you can find the courage to actually buy, I'm not saying you'll get it on the exact day, but generally when we're down here, you give yourself another 30 days, we should be in a better position. And I would argue that in 30 days time, we're going to know if we've already seen the top and we're heading back down, or we should know, or actually we've recovered and we're making that move back up. So that's something to have a look at. Just looking at Bitcoin there, just bouncing in and around that 100,000 level. Not quite lost it yet. Anyway, so today, what did we see? We saw liquidations, 1.3 billion as of 11 hours ago, or 11 o'clock this morning. So it's going to be higher than that, because obviously that was at 104,000. We're now down at 100,000. We're going to see more liquidations, but let's just call it 1.5 billion. The point that I'm trying to raise here is actually that is more liquidations in a 24-hour period than we saw in the COVID crash. And I mentioned this point back in October twice, actually, when we saw the other two big drops on the 10th and the 17th, that this market feels different to me because it feels like it is backed up far greater this time through leverage trading than perhaps in previous cycles. And we were having a bit of a discussion, some of us on Discord, about that. My views about sort of how easy it is to gamble, to leverage trades, etc., I think sort of stands true. And so this is going to become a bit of a norm. You know, when we start to see longs or shorts stacking up one way or the other, the market maker is going to see that as a all-you-can-eat buffet and just go at it. And so these sort of cascading liquidation events are going to happen. Now, if I have time and nothing major happens next week, I do want to have a bit of discussion. I've started pulling some information together. Binance versus Wintermute. Wintermute's market maker, probably the biggest one in the market after Alameda Research obviously went under. And there's definitely some rumblings there. I need to get to the bottom of it, but you know, in terms of liquidity and market makers and that, and we'll try and tackle that. But the fact of the matter is that right now, for me at least, retail and institutional, I suppose, but mainly retail, seem more interested in leverage trading and trying to make more bang for their buck that way than spot trading, buying and holding. Now that just could be because of the time in the cycle. Those that are coming in late are thinking, well, actually, to really make any gains, I'm going to risk a little bit more, push the envelope out, try and leverage trade rather than spot hold. And to be frank, for most people that have just held altcoins, and I've done that myself through this cycle, they've not done very well, just sat on their own. Certainly, if you've not been getting any staking rewards, it's not helped that too much either. So this was a coin viewer that sort of came a lot larger than the COVID crash, we can see. But as I mentioned, I was at 11 a.m., so a good 9 hours ago. That is going to be significantly higher. Unfortunately, I couldn't find an updated one on that one. But what you're looking at the moment is, I'm just trying to, so it's for Binance, OKX, and Bybit. And this is the Bitcoin exchange liquidation map. And what we're really looking at here, you can kind of, oh, my head's in the way again, just a second. Okay, so you got this red arrow, and then to the left of that, we've got this red line. So this is cumulative long liquidation leverage. So effectively, this is just the sum of all of the long liquidations. And you can see it's sitting in and around about 100 million. You go to the right-hand side of that, and the green line, that's the cumulative short liquidations. That's at over 16 billion. So when we talk about the markets or market makers trying to look at which side they want to take the market towards, over the last 24 hours, well, actually over the last 30 days, but certainly over the last 24 hours as well, there has been a stellar rise in people trying to short the market. And I too am shorting the market at the moment. But the point I'm trying to make is that at some stage, the market maker is going to go, no, we may continue to go back down, but not before I go and attack a large sum. And it's just because the variance between the two is so disproportionate. There's too much money to be made for people just shorting at the moment. They need to get that bloody nose so that the market maker stands a chance of actually winning some themselves. So I will close, certainly before I go to bed tonight, I will close all of my short trades. I've actually got 2 on the monitor, just looking at the moment, because I want to make sure that I don't leave them running for too long. Although, just whilst we're talking, I will just take a 50% off the Tau one. Sorry. There we go. Okay. Right, just close 50% off the Tau short there. Got in at 405. I think 381 is a good level to at least take some profit. Sorry, I might look back on those a little bit later on again. But yeah, we've just got to be cautious. And this goes back to just, for me, bearing in mind, people lost 19 billion less than a month ago. Then a week later, we lost another 2.5 billion. We've lost probably another 2 billion today. Now, I know that's not total actual value. It's a kind of a accumulation of how much leverage you had on whatever you put in originally. But the fact that we can still fill back up to 16 billion in such a short period of time just again shows how degenerate we are starting to be, or have been, throughout this market. And I do think, yes, if you can play this correctly with discipline, it's a very useful tool, but this is the kind of thing that gets people wrecked, unfortunately. Anyway, that was the 20 billion liquidation was not the bottom. That actually proves, again, so this article came out the 11th of October, so that was the day after that. And they said within the article that actually, despite us falling to 102,000, whatever, that's probably not the bottom. We'll see some further falling. And okay, it's taken best part of a month to get there, but William Solberg was correct. And what is this one? So Bitcoin price gets a $92,000 target as new buyers enter capitulation mode. So there's a couple of things within this. So you got to think about it. 6th of October, so a month ago, we made an all-time high, 126,000. A lot of news flying in and around that, and in the week leading up to it as well. So anyone that's bought over the last 30 days is down as of today. And some of those that will have bought at the top, they are down 25% or 20% on where they entered the market. So definitely feeling that capitulation and that fear, which obviously is manifesting in the fear and greed index. But there's a talk here of a 92,000 level. There isn't apparently a CME futures gap, but interestingly enough, we go back to that chart that I drew with my lower line down here, put it back on the 3-day. You can see that 92 level. It actually does make sense in terms of that support and resistance we had all the way through sort of Trump's election win, and then through the inauguration before the tariffs were announced and we came back down. And even after climbing out the tariffs, that bounced back. So that 92,500 level is certainly something to keep your eyes on. Of course, we don't want it to go down there, as we now have broken through 100,000 again, 99,953. But if we do, we can't rule out that level. We may not want it to go down there, but the market doesn't owe us anything. It could quite conceivably get there. And I think there is method and logic to that level, something to certainly eye. And as we move into this next range, unfortunately, that ties in. That's fine. Poly markets, I had this set up this morning because I was talking about that 100K, watch out for it, but we have broken through it. So it is 100%, this has filled. But it's funny that it was before 2026 when this was set up. I don't know how long ago it was set up. Must have been the 14th of July. But this is me kind of going back on something I talked about in Discord rather than on here, but just to emphasize just how wild the market is. Look, this is poly market. You can bet on absolutely anything. You can bet on the New Jersey governor election. You can bet on Democratic sweeps. When will the government shut down? Football betting, Bitcoin related betting, basketball related betting, the Chilean presidential election. Anything you can get your hands on, you can now bet on. And as I mentioned, the way poly market do it for the United States, they circumnavigate a lot of gambling laws because it isn't classed as gambling or a casino, and it actually also allows them to get into the under 18 or the under 21 market. So this is a very dangerous thing. I just think psychologically, I'm thankfully not too much of a gambler, although I am in crypto, so I probably am more than I would like to admit. But I think this is just systemic of a much wider problem that we're having. But that is why when people do come into crypto, they are more than happy to try and gamble and play with more than they actually can afford to lose. So Let me just have a look. I doubt you see Bijan's comment in Bitcoin, but it would be great to see what you think of this, please, Harry. I will have a look in a second, Jordan. There is an unfilled CME gap down at 92. Yeah, let's just bring that one up. CMEs. So this is it here. I'll just put a triangle on it, and then I'll need to remember to put my face back on. Not that you guys really care for that. But that's where the gap is. It's quite small because you're taking the wicks, but that's the gap. And there is a gap there. And you've got to say, you know, there's not much holding us up except for what happened in June 23 before getting down to the 96. And then when you're down at that level, again, there's not really much holding you. Matter of fact, if we head to the usual charts that we have a little play and a mess around with, we can kind of see liquidation levels forming. So I've left this one on. I should have turned it gray. This is what we broke through today. And so we were hovering at the top of this for a little bit of time, but it was only a matter of time before they went, no, we're taking it all. And they've cleared it out. And the next couple of levels, unfortunately, below us, and we haven't had to move up on this chart in a while, but unfortunately, these have been here time in memoriam. We've got a 98 to 97,000 level, and then we've got that 93,000. It's actually all the way down to 89.50, but obviously within that is the 92 level. So maybe we get to see it. What I would say, though, is prior to us getting to there, we're going to start to feel some fib levels, and we've got a 1.681 level at 94,268. So maybe they look to continue this move, sweep down here, take 97, and look to reverse it back through. But I just, you know, hesitate. There's a lot of shorts. See how quickly this short has just built up over the last, or since Thursday. We've actually picked up a really big level between 111,000 and 112. I didn't have room to put the 111 on. And I just don't think the market makers are going to let that one rest. Similarly, this 116,000 to 118 has also only built up since, you know, a few days before, 27th of October. So really are starting to build up some of these levels. Anyway. So they're the things that unfortunately we need to look out for. And then here it is. Finally, the one Bitcoin has finally done it. And you've heard me talk about this level numerous times before. 50 EMA on the weekly time frame is just the go-to indicator for if I can't be bothered to do any TA. If we close below that, stay below. Well, assuming we were above the 50 EMA on the weekly time frame, we are still in a bull market. We're below that, and we're talking about bear market territory. So we are riding on it. Now, we've been here before. This is not our first rodeo on this bull market. Matter of fact, since the bottom in 2022, we've actually touched the 50 EMA four times. Now this is our fifth time. And actually, most times we have convincingly bounced from it. So again, a logical level that we may have looked to have retest. And look, I'm not trying to draw any symmetry here, but you can kind of feel these kind of feel like similar size bounces. Okay, maybe that first one, not so much. It's under my head. You can't see it anyway. Good, because it doesn't look right. But the other ones, you know, it kind of feels like a natural kind of similar gap between it. Where was it? This is the first to there. That was 35 bars. I mean, 30 bars, you know, give or take. I mean, I could always buy myself a little bit of leeway and go, well, no, it didn't actually touch it and close it there till 31. But you kind of get it, you know, we've just been away from it for such a long time that we may end up coming back down. So nervous time here, because we may well be trying to determine if we have actually got to the bottom. But what I always try and look out for is a couple of weekly closes below it before I'm going to make any decision. That can backfire, because within a couple of weeks, you can see that it drops quite significantly. And if you have a look at where we were in 2021, took a while to get down to it. So 69 was the top, didn't get down to it till 55, got through. We messed around, couldn't really decide, wait till it broke through. I did sell some at 50, but I didn't sell the majority of mine until like in the 40s when we finally decided it was over, and we ended up getting out. So yeah, it does mean you can leave some on the table, and you know, the reality of it is that right now it's a 20% drop from the all-time high. So we already have left $25,000 on the table, and we could fall another 10 or 2, another 5 or 10 before we actually get to that level. So yeah, if the tone of things have changed, this is why, is because we're on this, okay? And I am of the opinion, I have been of the opinion, that we're coming close to the end of the cycle. And the reality of it is, maybe it has already topped and I just didn't realize it, and now we're just waiting to go through it. So it's kind of make or break for me. I haven't sold anything yet. I did update you to say I sold some of my altcoins, but I haven't sold anything of my Bitcoin. I haven't sold majority of my Tau holdings or anything like that. So I'm still in the market, as you would understand it. I'm just waiting to see, and this has always been a big indicator for me. So we're just going to be watching that. Canary in the coal mine. Does look like BlackRock is selling, but we've only had 4 days in a row of them selling round about $500 million, which sounds like a lot, but let's not forget that BlackRock's Bitcoin balance at the moment stands at 93.6 billion. Earlier on today, that was 100 billion. So they hold quite a bit. So the fact they have sold $500 million, no surprise there. We've got to remember these are investors buying the IBIT share, and if they decide they want to move it somewhere else, they're just going to tell their broker to go and do it, and they have to follow through and then sell it on. Kind of looks like they bought a little bit today, but let's just wait until the people that actually follow all of the wallets properly assess it all sort of a couple of hours after midnight, and we'll see what's happened overall. But yeah, we have been selling the last 4 days in a row. Let's have a quick drink. Okay, my first. That's the link he shared. Let's have a look. So you asked me to have a look at something Bijan posted. You tagged me. Is that what you tagging me in it? Is it? Okay. The market is made up of leverage traders, not spot holders. That's why we see more cascading events. Just my opinion. Okay, let's have a look. I'll click on this. We'll see. Nearly all active sell pressure on BTC spot markets has come from Binance over the last 2 days. All other markets are basically flat. Pretty odd to see. Let me just have a look here. I'd have to have a look into this as to sort of what the sales are. Now, something I was going to talk about next week, and I still will, hopefully, this winter moot kind of thing. There's talks about whether or not they're going to sue them because they had an auto deleveraging kind of tool, which basically just wiped out some of the market makers as well, losing hundreds of millions. Binance have been allegedly suggested they're going to sort of pay people back. And some of the smaller retails, they did give them free BNB tokens. I don't know if this is associated with it. I'll certainly take a look, but Jordan, I can't really comment on it right now as I've not looked into this. I mean, this is coin value days destroyed, is it? On the cumulative volume days, I'm just reading my own type of things. Yeah, they are going to. I just don't know why. I don't know if that's because they've moved it to a cold wallet or it is actual sales. I don't know. But I will have a look and I will let you know. Okay, so Havinder. He asked the question, when moon? I appreciate it was probably a bit tongue-in-cheek, but there is I think a genuine question wrapped up within that, in terms of what the hell is going on. I thought we're supposed to be in a bull market. When are we actually going to feel like we're experiencing a bull market? And I've already talked about the sort of the 50 EMA, but this is a logarithmic chart, not a linear chart. But don't forget, Bitcoin has climbed out from 15,000, apologies, to 125,000. So it kind of did what's that? An 8x, 8.5x. I would, an 8.5x in 2 years, 3 years. Pretty fantastic, to be honest. Even for Bitcoin, it's kind of not quite as good as a 20x we got from 3,000 all the way up to sort of 60 odd, or 3,200 to 69,000 or what have you, but still a fairly good return this side. So yeah, I understand sort of that when moon sentiment, it can feel very difficult. I've sort of for me, I'm not willing to throw in the towel yet. I think there is still an opportunity to be had. Even if this is the end, I would expect us to see a move up of some sort. And it's just how we react from that move up. We bounce off the 50 EMA. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but if we do clear off the 50 EMA, we need to be taking the all-time high. We can't just go back into a range for another few months. It's just not going to show the kind of strength that we ultimately need to kind of clear that range. Now, how high we go after that, we'll get the Ouija board out and try and ask. 140,000, 180,000, people argue 240,000. It'll be what it will be, and we'll just have to react from it. But I think most people ask the when moon because of, I'll come back to that other chart. People ask about that when moon because of altcoins. Most of us try and make our money or our profit in altcoins because we feel that they have a better, we've been led to believe that they have a better chance of climbing against BTC, particularly at the end of a cycle. Earlier on today, Ethereum fell below 3,400. It is currently sitting at, can't see it, 3,170. But that's not the most amazing thing. Ethereum is now negative on the year of 2025, the final blow off peak 2025, when we were expected to see rotations from BTC into Ethereum and then Ethereum into large caps, etc., etc. It has lost all of its year to date gains. And if we have a look at CoinMarketCap, number 2 is Ethereum. You go across to the right hand side, it's actually down almost 5% from where it was December 31st, 2024. So bearing in mind that this thing holds, did it give me the figure? No, it doesn't. I think it's around about 17%. I can't remember off the top of my head. 11%, sorry, dominance. 12% dominance. Bearing in mind this thing holds 12% dominance of the overall market. It can't even beat where it was in 2024. And yes, it did set a new all-time high ever so slightly by about $100. But that was short-lived as well. And so that whole, when moon or why is my alt bag not moving as far as it was? Well, Ethereum is the perfect picture for why this thing isn't moving. Now, of course, there are examples, BNB, Solana, that have actually done very well through this bull market to a great extent. BitTensor as well. We haven't felt that because we got into it, $180, $200 kind of level. But it started off below 35. And so there are some that have actually done quite well, but generally speaking, they have all suffered. And you only have to look at charts like this. So we go back to Bitcoin and we have a look. We can see log chart. You can kind of sort of get the impression strong moves up during the, this is a bull year, if you will. This is a bull year and this is a bull year. We go to Ethereum. Was I on Ethereum beforehand? And even just look at Ethereum. I mean, I don't know why these lines are on here. Get a horizontal one. Look, this here, 2022. This here is the highest it's made, 2025. It's done nothing in the last 4 cycles. And this is supposed to be the one that leads the pack for us. And it just hasn't ever delivered on that. And if you have a look at others, I think it's even worse. So what I've tried to signify here in the boxes, so the green boxes, it's a 12-month period. So the 12 months prior to the peak of the cycle, based on Bitcoin, not on, altcoins running afterwards. And you can kind of see on 2017, the 1900% gain for others versus BTC. So this chart is others versus BTC. In 2021 to the peak in 2022, we had a 660% gain of others versus BTC. And you can see, look at it, this didn't just happen in the last month. This happened throughout the year. Strong moves up throughout the year. Now take the last 12 months. Others, remember, so it's outside of the top 10, so we can't even hold Ethereum to account here, and we don't get the kick from Solana or BNB. But actually, in the last 12 months, BTC has continued to dominate and others are down 63%. So that altcoin when mood mentality just hasn't worked this cycle. And I've talked about this for quite a long time, just on my disappointment, I suppose, with altcoins. And I don't get me wrong, I came into this cycle moving into Near, moving into Link, moving into Polkadot. And if we have a look at some of these, I mean, okay, Polkadot, here we go. So this is, I can't be bothered getting up on trading views. We've got coin market cap, but what we can see on the line graph here is its entire history. So 2021, okay, yeah, we can see it got up to $50 odd. Look at it since then. We're supposed to have been in a bull market. We're supposed to have 1 year down, 3 years up. This thing has actually gradually gone down, flatlined. It's been a bust. Let's take Near. Okay, you can see 2021 moved up here quite nicely. Had another little pump in May of 2022. But then since then, it has just fallen to levels lower pretty much than sort of the bottom of the bear market. We have a look at Matic, Polygon. This one, it's kind of hard to tell because it did actually change its name. So I've only got data from November 2023, but still 1 year into the bull market. And actually, we should have been climbing throughout. It's fallen away. These are not small altcoins that I've mentioned. And then if you want to think, well, you know, it's AI is where you need to be. Well, who remembers FET or Artificial Super Intelligence Alliance, as it's called now? But look at this, you know, ran up and it's just fallen away. This thing looks like it has died. And this is unfortunately the narrative and the story across so many altcoins that we are unfortunately really struggling to see that. And I just don't believe that we're going to have an alt market. I appreciate that is different to what a lot of people say in Discord and what a lot of people are hoping for on the internet, but I just don't feel it this time. I feel ETFs have taken over, and those that are willing to try and do something with altcoins are either only interested in memes, and they're doing it through Pump Fund, and they're doing it through God, my mind's gone blank. But wherever you trade your meme coins from, why is my mind gone blank? Or the leverage trading, they're not holding the actual underlying asset, and that's why we're not seeing these moves here. As people are, you know, short-term holding it, and they get knocked about by market makers rather than bag holders holding onto it for accumulation. So that's just my opinion of that. Sorry, I'm just looking over onto the live recording. What's going on? Oh, do you know what it is? I've hit it. Okay, hopefully I've fixed that and I've not messed up the recording there. I'm not entirely too sure now, but if someone can let me know, we'll go from there. I accidentally hit a button on my YouTube dashboard. Anyway, right. Let's leave that where it is and let's have a look at some charts. I think that's the best way to do it. Can someone let me know if I'm still talking to you? As I'm not entirely too sure where things currently are and how far behind you are with me. But whilst you're trying to find your keyboard or write a message, Bitcoin daily time frame, we've got all of the bells and whistles on there. Thanks, Ejan. We can see the move down. So we talked last couple of weeks about this 50 EMA really holding us back here, and then unfortunately, where I'm trying to find where last Tuesday was here, rejected from the 50 EMA, 200 quarters. And then even on Friday, we were talking about a good bounce from here needs to be sustained, but actually we've fallen down through. And what I find interesting is where we bounced. So this white line here has actually been on the chart for a long time. And that white line is not there because it represents 100,000, 101,000. No, it's the base of this vector candle that we finally recovered. So, you know, if we take the replay back, that vector candle was there only 2 days ago. But now we've finally actually come down and recovered it and cleared it out. We've actually even gone a little bit further to take the wick, because, you know, we sometimes talk about that actual wick being there. So yeah, so that's where that currently sits. Now, again, we can talk about the 800 EMA. It's down at 80,000. Let's not worry too much about that. But we have seen this strong move here. And, you know, in 3 hours time, unless we see a drastic turnaround, this thing is going to close as another red vector candle within a range, and it's going to leave room for us to come back. And I know I talked about, you know, last week we'll be looking to clear that, but the caveat was we had to get above 112,000 and break through the, well, it's actually about 113, I think, at the time, and break through the 50 EMA, which we haven't done. Now we're going to have all of these. It's going to come all the way down here to wherever this candle closes. We're going to have those to attack through. Not to mention, we are actually a fairly decent distance away from the 10 and the 20 EMA. We are going to expect us to come back. We are overextended. I would expect us to see some kind of recovery into those vector zones. I'm not going to say that we are going to guarantee to clear through it all. We've got a bit of work to do to get there. 200, 10, 20, 50 before we can start dancing. And we haven't actually broken the 50 EMA since World Mental Health Day, 10th of October, cascade and liquidation event. So definitely a bit of work to do there. Let's get rid of these and no, we'll leave them on, just drop down to 4 hour. Hopefully they won't get in our way. And you can see these are fanning out quite nicely now. And actually the 200 is about to cross over the 800, giving us, unfortunately, all the EMAs lined up in the correct order, just the wrong way around for us. But we can see the path that we've got to take this back through. And the speed at which we've fallen over the last 2 days has again, it's left us vectors on the 4 hours and a fairly decent amount of them to have a go at. So I don't want to say it's a guarantee we turn around at 101,000. We've looked at support and resistance levels. We couldn't find a fib level on the big time frame. I'm wondering if there's a fib level. We have to go back far to find it. Right, let's just get a clean chart. I think it's going to be too messy without. Okay, bear with me. Why did that not load in? There we go. Let's get rid of that. Let's get rid of that. Let's put this on the daily. Let's do down to here. Tell you what, it's not bad that, is it really? So it's 100, so this is body to body, not wick to wick. But you can kind of see, we've had the move down, we've come back up, hit the 0.5 EMA, didn't quite get to the 618, come back down, retested, rejected off the 232, and now we've come down to this extended level, the 0.414 level, and we've started to bounce from that. I mean, if we're going to look for a level to bounce from, why not that? I would argue that it's kind of nicely aligned with these fibs on the way down. So, unfortunately, there's no guarantee it can't fall further through, but it has hit this level and bounced quite cleanly from it. There's a bit of hope there for us to ultimately have a look at. But once we can get, well, if we get that move, here we go. And, sometimes it's where TA and fundamentals and everything else kind of needs to just merge into one to say, can we get it? But we can see targets of trap liquidity should we get that turnaround. And we may not get there straight away, but that move to 108,600, taking through all of these. Gonna have to get rid of this now. I don't want to get rid of all the drawings, so I'll just have to do that. And I did it anyway. I've done it twice now. That's brilliant. And again, come on, there you go. Right. Coming through these, getting up into here. I doubt it will be a straight line. But then again, it's a straight line down, so why not? Okay, bit tensor. Again, we're very easy to celebrate how fast we can climb up, and I think I regrettably said this on Friday that we could quite easily fall just as fast, and that's exactly what we've seen that we've done. Where do we find ourselves? We kind of find ourselves where we saw the back end of last month. So, where we've pumped a couple of times and found some consolidation in and around here. So I'm on the 4 hour. We'll just stick with the 4 hour. 375. I was talking about that 390 level. It's kind of holding. So I was looking down here where these wicks were, but we have wicked through it now. We've got that 800 EMA, which on the daily time frame worked quite well in terms of tying in with the Gandalf line and holding us through. I don't think we need Gandalf there right now, to be perfectly honest. But I can't rule out because, actually, technically, we have to wait till we see a bounce. But if this turns around from here, it's still actually made a higher low, ever so slightly, but it has. But what we don't want to do is this just continue down, and we just start to take out some of these lows here, and we're worrying about a break of trend, and before you know it, we're talking about the Gandalf line again. But sadly, that 460 level didn't really offer any support whatsoever. We did bounce into it, but we rejected from, and look, everything's just curling, nose diving down with the speed at which we're going from them. But again, I stand by, we've always cleared out those vectors in the range. So yes, there are some vectors to the south. Now we could actually take those out. But these ones to the north, they're prime for taking as well. And then it's a battle again at that 450 level, and whether or not we can break through. We're the wrong side of the EMAs this time. So, you know, our battle to the 50 EMA, sorry, to the 450 level, had us holding support at the 50 EMA as we did it. This time we've actually got to get through that. But, you know, nothing's impossible. Don't know if the daily really tells a different picture. Gonna have a red vector candle, and we're resting on the 50 EMA. We close around here, it's just pulled back to the 50 EMA, you know, still healthy, still moving upwards, still, you know, making higher highs, higher lows, apologies, and higher highs. And the wick almost came down to the 200 EMA. Matter of fact, I should have started with this one. As bad as it's been, it's still not the worst picture I've actually seen. Z-Tech, okay, fine. Solana's moving down to the 800 EMA on the daily. Really had some fall in there. SPX moving down, just working down some of these. Near and Link, I'm not really following anymore because I sold. But Ethereum, here we go. So 4,000 level, local high through this bull market. Tried to get back up to it, just waterfalled through it. Didn't even find any real support at the 200 EMA. And we've come clean back down through here. And just look at what's on the left-hand side. This was a fairly aggressive climb up. And so there's not really anything holding it there. And what we actually have is a nice amount of vector candles there, which we talked about for towers being targets to the north. Well, we've got to be realistic. There's potential targets to the south here. And suddenly it's an incredibly different picture where we're sub 3,000 and we're talking about sort of 2,500 almost before we find some sort of cushion in and around here. And I will stand by the fact that until we get Ethereum really ticking, or at least getting back to all-time highs, we're going to struggle to see an alt season of some sort, in my opinion. Right. Having a look at some of the other things, I think we talked about dominance already. I still think that's going to climb. I can't see why we can't rule out it reclaiming this entire wick, to be perfectly honest with you. So 63.5. ETH BTC. I mean, it's just looking like Ethereum, to be honest with you. We've had a look at totals and others, which again are falling. Quickly have a look at some other things. Interestingly, the Dixie, it's at 100. It's back at parity now. That very strong bounce off that 97 level. This is a 15-year trend line that it bounced from. And, you know, you got to remember, interest rates coming down. It's going to, you know, the dollar's getting a little bit better, you know, in terms of borrowing it. So you're not paying as much, and we can look through this. There's a bit more strength there. Maybe this could climb, you know. Maybe this actually does climb. NASDAQ down 2% today. So I have to rearrange these here. But again, I mean, NASDAQ down 2% today hasn't hit the 20 EMA. If it fell to the 50 EMA, which is basically another 1,000 points, you still wouldn't say that that was a particularly negative fall or confirmation that we're in a recession and a bear market. Interestingly, Secretary of the Treasury of the United States, Bessent, had said last night or this morning that some sectors are in a recession. So, you know, maybe they're starting to change that narrative, moving it through. Government doesn't look like it's opening anytime soon, which again, I mean, it's the longest it's ever been closed for. So that's interesting. S&P, similar kind of fall today. Russell 2K down to its 50 EMA, so greater fall within that. But gold's down, silver's down. You know, a lot of stocks are down. Strategy just looks like it's done, really, doesn't it? I mean, that $450 is a long time ago. But, you know, there is some key support around the tariff levels that maybe we see it turn around. Nvidia, it is down today. It's got its earnings next week. So this thing has propped up the stock market for the last few years. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't. Big gap down on Palantir. I think that'll be recovered. It actually had an amazing earnings report yesterday, and it's got its partnership with Nvidia. Appreciate, you know, this whole AI bubble that, you know, Palantir's kind of sort of getting involved within. But I don't know if this is just profit taking or there's something that I haven't read about in terms of this gapping down, but it just seems to me we had a great earnings report and then it's dropped today. Markets kind of helped push that down, but I think if Nvidia is good, and I don't see why their earnings report won't be good. Matter of fact, AMD is today as well after the close. That could, just sort of keep this AI bubble alive and help breathe some more life into the Nasdaq. And I can't see this not being recovered. TauX down because BitSense is down below the 50 EMA, which it hasn't been for a while. And matter of fact, it's hit it very often, but always bounced from it. We finally lost it. Maybe that is something to watch. And Tesla, again, not too bad of a fall, a fairly decent climb there. I think that's probably where we are with everything. Oh, I was going to come back to this. So, okay. I'm not saying it has happened, but maybe just a final thought to think about as we're balancing in and around the 100K, we've only seen falling since the previous all-time high, is maybe we just need to open our minds up to, we were already thinking we were getting close to a top in terms of whether you were looking at the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, whether you're just looking at traditional 4-year cycles, whether you're just looking at, it feels like there's a recession around the corner and there's an AI bubble that's about to pop. Just kind of felt like we were close to a top. I still think that's the case. I'm still hedging my bets that we will see a further all-time high being made, and then we will fall into, a bear market. But I bring this one up here because what is interesting, and I've drawn this on my charts before, people talking about sort of the Bitcoin 4-year cycle, and I don't know when was the last time I did this cycle, but we had the creation cycle, early adoption cycle, mainstream cycle, and then mainstream adoption cycle, and which is what we're in. But what we're previously interested in is how long it's taken to get from bottoms of the market to tops of the market. I know that some people don't buy into this because it's not how you're supposed to judge 4-year cycles, fine. But just for this example, just bear with me because I'm just trying to illustrate a point. So the 2015 to 2017 was 103 weeks from bottom to top. The 2019 or 2018 to 2021, it's 102 weeks to the top. And we were looking at this 68 weeks in from wherever it must have been. But I've obviously not changed anything and the charts continued. So at the time, whenever we did this, so we must have looked at this in June, we were there, okay? But just have a look at this. Let's get rid of this orange one. This green line here, I extend this out. You can't. Why can't you see it as well as I can? I don't know. See, that's not it. That's just that. Sorry, this is I was hoping the writing was going to be better, but it's in green. You can't really see it. But the point I was trying to make, obviously not very well, was the all-time high, let me just zoom in on this now, that was made 126,000 here. No. Yeah, it was that. I'm on the weekly, that's why. 126,000 on the Sunday, and it was the 6th of October was the day it fell away from that. Well, in terms of numbers of weeks from bottom to top, that was 103 weeks or 102 weeks, which is exactly what the previous bull phase of each of the cycle were. And it just so happens to be that was an all-time high. Very coincidental, I accept that. But maybe we're just looking at it wrong. Maybe it did top then. And we were all talking about, well, they get ever so slightly shorter. It's not quite a 4-year each time, it's actually 102 weeks rather than 108 weeks, which is what 452s would be. And so, yeah, so maybe that's how, right, I'm trying to, I know what I'm messing up here, it's 152. But anyway, you get the point. That actually that there was the top, and we've just been too blind to actually see it. And it is tied in perfectly with what people had been saying all of this cycle. People had pointed out last cycle, and we first identified in that 2017 cycle, that from the bottom of the bear market to the top of the bull market, it's 153 weeks or whatever. It's 3 years, bang on to the dot. Well, actually just under, as we established. And as I say, just such a coincidence that that exact date was the day we hit an all-time high of 126,000. Hindsight will tell us whether or not that is correct, but it's certainly something to think about. I'm not sold on that yet, but you know, we lose at 100k and we stay below it for a couple of weeks. I don't think we can really argue with it. So sorry that I bumbled that last bit there. It's because I kind of got it out of order. I will draw this up better and I'll put it in Discord, and I'll make sure that the crappy writing is not one tiny, don't even know if you can see that, and two in green. So I'll just make that look a little bit better and exacerbate my point somewhat better than that. Anyway, I think that's going to be enough. It has been a tough couple of days, and it may get tougher for a couple more. But we've just got to accept that that's part of the market. And if you don't like it, get out. You know, like, and I'm not saying that as in like you're an idiot, get out. I mean, you know, no one's telling you how long you need to stay in for. If you think that's enough and I've done it, then get out. Don't tell anyone if you don't want to get ridiculed or whatever. Just get out and bag whatever profits you have and just wait 12 months. Yes, it may go up in between them, but we're fairly certain we're going to see a correction in the next 12 months where we'll find a bottom somewhere towards the end of 2026, and we can start this process all over again. I will obviously be watching this like a hawk, as most of you are as well. I'll be chatting through Discord and posting comments and all of that kind of stuff. I'll have a look in that link that Bijan put through as well. Just be careful out there. If you are trading, just think about your stop loss. Don't have your stop loss too close to liquidation level, and have a stop loss, okay? I know some people just like to rock with a liquidation and they balance their risk that way. But if the cascading liquidation events have taught us anything, I think it's kind of said that, you know, have that stop loss, manage your risk that way, and make sure your stop loss isn't too close to your liquidation level, or it's just going to bust through it and take you completely out. Other than that, yeah, enjoy the rest of your week. I've got to assume there's a trading pub on Thursday. I will be back on Friday, hopefully with some good news that we've cleared the 100k and we're climbing back out of this, but we will just let the charts tell us where we've got to. And if we can find some hope. Yes, BitTensor flew up 100% in a matter of weeks, and then it crashed down in a couple of days. But if it can crash down in a couple of days, then why can't it climb back up in a couple of days? Hey, why can't we look at it that way? Enjoy the rest of your evening, enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers now.